Thanks for watching another Gotnitro online instructional video. Today we're going to be installing the servos on the SF509 standard Nitro. Here's one of the servos here, and the servo for the throttle installs in the lower portion like this, and then for the steering it'll install the opposite way like this. Like this. So the wires coming out the front for the steering, and then the wires coming out the back towards the back of the bike for the throttle. So to install the servos, there's a few things that we need to do first to make it easier for us. We need to remove the side body mount, and you do that by just unscrewing it. Set that to the side. Now we want to remove this screw, has a 4mm nut on the other side. This bolt, same thing, 4mm nut. And this one, 4mm nut. What I do is I loosen these three bolts so that the nut on the other side comes off. Set the nut off to the side. Then you're going to want to remove this top body mount. Unscrew it. There is a spring tensioner underneath this body mount, so be careful when you pull the bolt through that the spring doesn't pop off. So just push down on this, pull the screw out, set the assembly aside, and then go ahead and remove these three screws, and the whole front end then, along with the servo tray, can easily be removed from the bike. Just undo the wiring here for the brakes so that they're straight, and you'll just pull them through the fittings on the bike as you remove the front end. Once you remove the front end, then you can easily access the servo tray. And easy access to the servo tray means ease to installing the servos. Much easier to do once you do this little bit of prep work. As you can see, I've gone ahead and put the bike back together. We have the servo for the throttle installed, and for this, once we have the frames apart, I'd strongly recommend that you go ahead and install the ball onto the carburetor. It's much easier to get at this lower ball fitting on the carburetor when you have the servo trays removed. So I just went ahead and pushed the ball on the throttle control horn on the engine, and then put the servo tray back in. Just remember that there's a couple of spacers down below here that when you put the bolts back through, make sure you put the spacers back in. And then of course put the top body mount back in and just screw the side mount back in. This is the way you would set up the throttle horn. We cut the one side off here. The other side facing the front is used to control the throttle in and out. The top is for the brakes, and then we have a bottom fitting similar to the very top one here for the front brakes for the dual brake setup. There's how the steering servo looks once you get it all installed and set up. We cut the other three nubs off of this and just nicely ground this down with a Dremel to make it nice and smooth, make it look good. In this bike we've also installed the Alleven side mounts, which we strongly recommend. They have nylon bars that come out here, as opposed to the wire sidebar mounts that Nuova Faor has, which has a tendency to really bounce the bike around on the pavement because of the steel wires on the pavement. The Alleven has the nylon bars. They're much more forgiving, and therefore the bike doesn't get tossed around as much when it's on the pavement. So once again, this is where we have everything set up. We're going to have the receiver set up back here. We ran the wires inside of the frame so that they come out nicely, not catching on any moving parts, so that they can be nicely routed back to install the receiver. This gentleman has also gone with the TT pipe that we sell. I have it installed there, as you can see, and then this just simply slides on the back, moves up front, and the clamp to clamp it, and it's going to look like so. Sounds very cool. Very nice setup. Next, we're going to be installing Pat's brakes. Let's give you a full look at the bike. You can see how we have everything set up. Alright, so now we have Pat's brakes installed, the dual disc on the front, and then the single disc on the rear. Nice braided cables, comes with Pat's brake set. You take a look at the other side of the bike. And like I mentioned, we do have the all-even sidebar set on instead of the wire sidebars that come with the Nuova Faor bike. Our custom TT exhaust. And we have lots of room to install the receiver, probably in the rear section here, once we get the telemetry stuff installed. Once again, this is the Nuova Faor SF509 standard Nitro version, and we have installed the Pico .12 engine in this one. Although the new Tech 15 motor is very good, very strong. We have now completed the install of Pat's brakes, the dual brake setup on the front and the single brake setup on the rear. Go ahead and turn on the radio here so you can see how everything works. With the throttle servo here, this is our rear brake linkage. And below here on this end of the star horn for the servo horn is the dual brake setup going into the same type of eyelet, and then your throttle setup here. So squeezing full is full speed ahead, relieves tension on the rear brake and in the front brake cables, and then when you apply reverse trigger, it pulls on the front and pulls on the rear to give you stopping action. As you can see, Pat's brakes stop the bike immediately. Pat's brakes are the only brakes that we have used that will actually lock the wheels up if that's what you want, which is kind of cool to have the rear wheel set a little stronger braking than the front, so you could actually lock the tire up a little bit going around the corner and steer through the corner. Here's the other side of the bike. We are using the all-even nylon sidebars, much better than the steel ones that come with the Nuova Faor. These are longer and much more forgiving on the pavement, doesn't toss the bike back and forth near as much. Give you a couple more close-ups. This concludes our instructional video of the Nuova Faor SF509 Nitro bike servo setup, Pat's brakes, Alleven sidebars. We're all ready to go here. Fire it up and break in the engine is the next step. Thanks for watching. Gotnitro Online.